The following talk was given at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. Please visit our website at audiodharma.org.
Before I give my talk today, let's do a couple of announcements. One is that next week I'm going to be away, and so Matthew Brensilver will come and teach these early morning 7 a.m. here in California teachings. Matthew is a wonderful teacher, and I think you'll be delighted by his teaching and his presence, and very happy to have him fill in for me. And the other is that our retreat center, the IRC Insight Retreat Center, we were going to open at the end of August, but now we've decided to delay that probably till the middle of November. And the retreats that we were scheduled to do in person now will be online, and which means that we can accept more people. So if some of you are interested in a chance to do an online retreat, and you can go, I think you can go onto IRC's website and see what's available now, or I think it's all been converted now, and to online retreats, and these online retreats are quite wonderful. It's one of the surprises of the pandemic is how beneficial it is for people to do them. And so anyway, so that's available. So this the last talk on this 5-part series on delusion. It's also the last talk in the now 3-week series on the 3 roots of unwholesome behavior. The 3, sometimes called the poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. And so in conclusion, I'd like to kind of paraphrase the Buddha when he said that, he said kind of emphatically or enthusiastically, he said, if it was not possible to bring greed, hatred, and delusion to an end, I would not instruct you to do so. But it is possible to put an end to greed, hatred, and delusion, and so this is my instruction. So maybe for many people it's inconceivable that they can give up these very strong forces in the mind, but this is what Buddhist practice sets out to do. And it's a phenomenally beneficial and dignified and valuable path to be on, to first alleviate, decrease, and then to have an experience of the absence of greed, hatred, and delusion. And that absence then is followed by coming to a time where the tendency to greed, hatred, and delusion comes to an end. And one of the things that's quite wonderful about this is that greed, hatred, and delusion are the roots for all unethical behavior, or say it differently, all behavior that causes intentional or conscious harm to others and even to ourselves. And it's a phenomenal thing to become a person who has cleansed themselves or freed themselves from these powerful forces, the consequences of which we can read in the newspaper every day, of how people treat each other and the impact we have on others and on the environment and all over. And it's the hope is that there are some people who appreciate the human capacity to become free, and are a model then, or a beacon for others that it's possible to be on this path. Maybe in this lifetime we're not going to go all the way to the complete ending of all greed, hatred, and delusion, but the diminishing of it, and to have greater and greater periods of time when we're free of it before it comes back, is really marvelous. For the Buddha, he teaches what he teaches called the Dharma, and sometimes this Dharma that he teaches is said to be visible here and now, directly perceivable in the present moment. It's not something esoteric and distant, but rather something that's available here And one of the inspiring ways in which he makes it so available, maybe it's hard to do this, but so kind of, in our lives, is that the Dharma, that when the Dharma is visible here and now, when we have had the experience of greed, hatred, and delusion, and we experience the mind, the heart, free of it, without it. And that distinction between what it's like to have a mind with greed, hatred, and delusion, and what it's like to have one without, that is where we can see the Dharma in a very profound way. But it really takes both. So part of this study of greed, hatred, and delusion is a willingness to see it in ourselves, to admit it to ourselves, to become familiar with all the tricks, all the ways that greed, hatred, and delusion operate for us. Not to feel bad about ourselves or be depressed by it, but the more familiar we become, then when it's not there, we're able to recognize that in a clearer way. It's like going from a crowded room full of things, and because we really know what that's like, the experience of an open room that's free of a lot of crowded things just feels so different, and we really appreciate it. In fact, if the room is spacious and clean and peaceful enough, it can feel nourishing and delightful to be in it. And so to be familiar with greed, hate, and delusion, to better appreciate and be nourished by the absence of it, that is to see the Dharma here and now. And so it's not understanding, great, profound teachings on emptiness or great states of consciousness or transcendental states, as much as it is this clear kind of ordinary recognition that's possible. The presence and the absence of these things. As we become familiar with greed, hatred, and delusion, and this week the topic is delusion, we begin to appreciate that all of these, and delusion as well, have a common characteristic, and maybe we can call it a common denominator, and that is they all involve clinging or grasping. And clinging, some people like to think of it as like plastic cling wrap, that it just sticks to us, and we stick to it, and sometimes you can't get rid of it, or you can't unfold it or something, and it just accompanies us. But grasping is a more powerful, and clinging, maybe some people are synonymous, grasping. When we cling to people with our hands or with our hearts or our minds, we grasp on, we don't want to let go, we claw. Sometimes it feels like we're clawing onto what we want and to other people or something. So all greed, hate, and delusion share having clinging and grasping as part of it. And something we're grasping, something we're clinging to. And the experience of becoming really free is the opening up of that grasping hand. It's the relaxing of the clawing hand. It's the softening of the fist or the resisting hand. There's a deep, deep kind of letting go of a knot inside of us. Deep letting go of a contraction, a coagulation that exists within the field of awareness. And so to move in that direction, to have a sense, this is possible, and to begin to experience this release of clinging, release of grasping, first in small little experiences in life. Even the smallest letting go, relaxing around something, is a foretaste or partakes in part with the liberation of a Buddha. It's just a matter of degree. And so we're not so different from the Buddha if we begin to appreciate the small degrees in which we live without greed, hatred, delusion, the small degrees in which we can let go of it and relax around it, small degrees we can let go of clinging and grasping. And the appreciating that, seeing that, and valuing it, and valuing ourselves for being on this path, it supports the growing capacity to let go more deeply, to relax more deeply. And it isn't so much we're letting go of things in the world, which some people protest, that, it just means that we live a life of radical renunciation, just let go of everything. That there's some value to that for sure. But it's not letting go of things that's the object of Buddhist practice. It's letting go of the clinging to things. It's letting go of the grasping in the mind. And whether or not we let go of things or even people sometimes is secondary. It's that we use our wisdom to know what's best to do there. But it doesn't take much wisdom to appreciate that we're better off not having clinging or grasping in the mind. And the people we do cling to, they really appreciate it many times when we can be with them and love them without clinging to them. So if you learn to let go of the clinging, life becomes a whole different game. And importantly, that as we learn not to cling, this absence of this activity of clinging, of grasping, this non-doing of clinging and grasping, that where it lowers the tendency to be caught in delusion, in hatred, and in greed. And we begin seeing how the movement towards delusion, towards greed, towards hatred, comes along with a activity of the mind, activity of the heart, of contraction, of tightness, of clinging, of tension, that is just not good for us. And to really feel and recognize that, because we're really in touch with ourselves, gives us the opportunity to recognize something different, the absence of clinging, and how good that is, and how our view of the world changes if we're seeing the world through the lens of non-clinging rather than seeing it through the lens of clinging. Seeing the world through the lens of non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. It is possible to do this, and it's more valuable to do this than a lot of other human pursuits. More valuable than becoming rich, more valuable than having, popularity and all kinds of things. So I wish you much, much happiness and peace and well-being. And I know that the greatest happiness and peace that's available to you will come when you really let go and release the clinging and grasping in the mind and free yourself of greed, hatred, and delusion. And may it be so. So thank you for this series and being part of this and listening, and I look forward to being back with you in 2 weeks. So thank you.